4.5, we also now have a dramatically updated scenes feature. This is our previs tool for creating realistic environments and creating your little virtual studio so you can more accurately plan your shots. And with 4.5, we have a lot of new options, and you can see some of them right now being used. If we go into our settings, this is what you'll encounter when you first create a scene. And you have similar options as you had before. You can turn on and off the mount models or the light grids, give it a name. Our floor, you have options to change the height. The floor appearance, so we have still have our light, dark, and mix, but now we also have a new custom texture option. So when you turn this on, it allows you to choose either from files on disk, the different layers of your physically based rendered materials, or you can just point this into a library. So I have a folder called 3D Textures. In each of that, I have folders of different categories where I can choose. In this particular one here, I have this kind of black and white tile floor. You can also give it additional adjustments, for reflectivity and for roughness to make it look how you want. Then for our lighting, we have some new options for adjusting the tint that are the sky and ground tints. These are creating different effects, how much of environment or house lights you want to add to the system. And if we keep going, we have a new background option. So in addition to being able to just change the color, so typically in a blank environment, you're going to have like the black kind of slightly gray background. You can change that color to whatever you want. In addition to that, now you can add equirectangular or cubemap background. So in this case, I have an equirectangular kind of a panorama, and I can go to my library and I can have different ones that I've downloaded online. I got all these for free. So let's say I like this particular Christmas studio one. I can hit apply, and I'll apply it here, and you'll see it updates the background to change over to that. And also additional options for tilt and orientation if I need to rotate or do something specific with that background. And then finally, on top of that, we have our new physics system. So if I turn this on, it doesn't do anything right away because I have to apply objects in the scene. But what this allows you to do is we can simulate things like gravity or slower moving like water, so that if you're planning like a drop or something like that, or maybe something rolling across the surface, it'll help us to plan that out a little bit easier. You can see here, we're kind of taking advantage of a number of new things that we can do in scenes. A few things you'll notice here is that, one, I'm using this model, which you may not be obvious, but it's a USDZ. You can import USDZ files from wherever you can get your USDZ from. They can even support animation, as you can see there. Reflections have been greatly improved, so I can create mirrored surfaces that reflect the environment. And I can now also add textures to different objects. So you see here, I got this capsule, which a capsule is also one of the new shapes that you can add, in addition to a ring and a circle. So a circle is like a plane, but it's flat and single-sided. So if I turn this around, there it is. So you can see here, it's only visible from one side. And for our actual objects, these right here, you can see this one here, I added in this nice texture. It's a physically based rendered texture. So you can see, even though the shape itself is a single, flat object, I can add textures to it and give it a realistic physical appearance. So it gives you, almost Blender level type of visuals without having to bring everything into Blender. One thing you also see on the right hand pane here in my camera view is that we also now support depth of field. So this is optional. You don't have to have this on. But what it will do is it'll give you, it'll follow your actual scene focus. So as my thing plays back in the scene, you can see my focus is actually on the robot back there and not in front of me. So you can create even more realistic previs by adding this little touch to your scene. And you don't, like I said, this is option, you can turn on and off. I can also adjust how much blur that I want to use for different effects. Along with that, we can also flip our scenes, portrait mode, etc. So a lot of new options there. And then in our scenes, I go back into here. You can see we have a lot of the same models, objects we had before, but now on the actual objects. So if I click back on our little guy here, you have textures, and then in our textures, we can use a library. So it'll reuse the same library you saw earlier from the floor, and we can use this to apply properties to that. All of your additional properties are in these little group scroll downs for easier access. And this is also where the physics options will come in. So if I turn on the physics and I just keep this dynamic, when I go to play back this move, you'll see it's gonna just fall, right? And so I can add multiple objects in my scene, and they'll interact with each other dynamically based upon the physics that are set. And one more thing that if let's say you've gone through and you've created a really cool scene and you wanted to reuse this later on, you now have the ability to export your scene, and it will take, it'll create a zip file that will contain all the properties and all the resources, so your textures, your models and everything, and plus a scene file that you can then save out and import this in to another project. Something else you may have seen here is that we can also now support projected live video or recorded video in our spotlight. So if you wanted to create some kind of new visual effect, or let's say you have a logo that you wanted to add to your scene for your part of your previs and you wanted to project it in there, that's something you can do now as well.